Israeli leaders are declaring that there is no room for terror and intimidation scenarios as the IDF is ready with plans for a broad preemptive military attack against Iran, Hezbollah, and all of Iran's other proxies. Iran also shows no signs of backing down from their plans to attack Israel, having told all the diplomats who tried to talk them out of it that we don't care if it causes a regional war. As if to prove this point, Hezbollah continued firing barrages of drones into northern Israel overnight on Sunday and into Monday morning, with one hitting a position held by 2 IDF soldiers, moderately wounding them. Meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, the IDF discovered a massive complex of smuggling tunnels running under the Philadelphia corridor and eliminated the Hamas Deputy Minister of Economy. The IDF also struck several Hamas positions that had been deliberately set up inside schools. In Judea and Samaria, security operations continue, with the IDF eliminating a terror cell in the city of Tulkarem, north of Jerusalem. Elsewhere, a Houthi leader who had traveled to Iraq to train Hezbollah terrorists was eliminated in a targeted strike. Finally, the United States had stepped up the delivery of heavy bombs and other weapons to Israel amidst the increasingly fragile situation. We have a busy day ahead of us, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 304th day of the war against Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah, and all of Iran's proxy organizations. As you know, tensions have risen in the last week in the Middle East after the dramatic assassinations of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, in Iran, and the assassination of Hezbollah's leader Fouad Shukar in the heart of Lebanon, in Beirut. Since then, Iran and Hamas have accused Israel of killing these evil men and vowed revenge. Israel continues to prepare for a possible attack by Iran, Hezbollah, and Iran's proxy organizations in Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. IDF forces are on high alert, with leaders working on plans for an Israeli response in the event of an attack on the country's territory. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu conveyed the heads of the security establishment to assess the situation in the security bunker in Tel Aviv on Sunday evening as part of the preparations to thwart the attack, which is assumed to be both inevitable and imminent. However, at the political level, they insist that Israel can withstand such an attack, and there is no place for scenarios of terror and intimidation or the exaggerated threats. In Jerusalem, they make it clear that Israel's power and the American aid are at their best and at their peak, and point out the importance of the huge presence of military forces from the United States of America in the region. The Americans have deployed large naval, air, and ground forces to the region, reinforcing bases set up in Arab allies and in the waters of the Red Sea, Indian Ocean, and the Persian Gulf. These forces are equipped to warn of incoming attacks as well as intercept weapons in flight. The last time Iran launched missiles at Israel in April, some of them were intercepted by American forces deployed in Qatar. Other interceptions were made by British, France, and Jordanian ships and aircrafts, while other regional allies provided support in less direct ways. To the question of whether the same coalition will cooperate again this time, an Israeli source replied that it depends on the type of the attack. In any case, on Sunday evening, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Iran and its mouthpieces have an unstable appetite for aggression. They want to surround us with a stronghold of terror on 7 fronts: our long-hand strikes in the Gaza Strip, in Yemen, and in Beirut. Wherever necessary, we will stand up to them in every arena, far and near. Anyone who harms our citizen will pay a very heavy price. Meanwhile, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who yesterday visited the Land Technology Unit, HTL, which is responsible for the operational technological response to the forces in the field, sent a threatening message to Iran and Hezbollah saying, "I examined today the deployment of the IDF forces both in defense and in attack. We are very strongly prepared in defense on land and in the air, and we are ready to move quickly to an attack or a reaction. We will exact the price, as we have been doing for the last few days. If they dare to attack us, they will pay a heavy price." Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal news portal reported last night that Iran rejected the earnest efforts of the United States and diplomats in the Arab world to moderate its response to the assassination of Hamas leader Haniyeh in Tehran. Since the assassination, Iran's leaders have vowed to respond, and in talks held yesterday they said, and I quote, "We don't care if our reaction causes war," end quote. Nevertheless, the United States has asked Western and Arab countries that have diplomatic relations with Iran to convey a message to the Ayatollah regime not to escalate, and warned that any significant attack would trigger a very strong counter-reaction. On the other hand, there was pressure on the Arab countries following the expected Iranian reaction against Israel for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. The same Arab countries that were partners in stopping the UAV attack in April are trying to convince Iran to moderate its response, and above all, to make sure that the response does not harm them directly, mainly Jordan and Egypt, Israel's neighbors. At the same time as these diplomatic efforts were going on, there was a lot of congestion at the departures terminal at the Beirut International Airport. This follows calls by foreign countries, including the United States, for their citizens to leave Lebanon as soon as possible. Many citizens of Western and Arab countries are taking this seriously, and they make up the bulk of the departures. Much smaller numbers of Westerners are also leaving Israel, and only few tourists are arriving here in recent days. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on what is happening. In fact, the TBN Israel channel will broadcast continuous updates here on the channel in the event of an emergency in Israel to keep you updated on what is happening in the Jewish state. So stay tuned. Now to the border with Lebanon, on Israel's north. In the last 24 hours, the IDF spokesman issued a statement that a number of suspicious aerial targets had been identified that had crossed the Lebanese territory, and that interceptors have been launched at them. It was also reported that one drone had crossed, starting a fire on a spot, as well as moderately wounding 2 IDF soldiers. Hezbollah took responsibility for this attack on the Galilee in a statement in the El Mayadin network, which is affiliated with the terrorist organization. It was also reported that during the night, warplanes bombed a weapons warehouse and a number of terrorist infrastructures of Hezbollah in the area of Kfar Kila in southern Lebanon. IDF forces also fired artillery into the areas of Shiba and Rasia El Fuar in southern Lebanon. At the same time, this morning, the Lebanese National News Agency reported 2 deaths in another attack in Mis El Jabal. According to the reports in Lebanon, one of those that was neutralized in the attack is a medical person for the organization called Watchers of the Islamic Message. This is an association belonging to the Amal Shiite movement, an ally of Hezbollah. We will continue to update you on developments on this subject. In order to stay updated in real time on what is happening in Israel, connect with us on social media networks and search for TBN Israel so that you know what is happening in Israel in real time. Switching our focus to the Gaza Strip, the forces of Division 162 and the Yalam Combat Engineering Units located a 3-meter-low tunnel in the south of the Gaza Strip, running partially under the Philadelphia corridor. This tunnel is large enough for vehicles to pass through it and was used to smuggle massive amounts of contraband into the Gaza Strip. It also served other purposes, having been stocked with supplies that would allow Hamas terrorists to stay there, hidden underground for months at a time if necessary. The tunnel reached a depth of 60 and 70 meters and could have accommodated thousands of Hamas fighters, allowing them to approach Israeli communities undetected. The main tunnel had several branches which would allow the terrorists to move large numbers of operatives, weapons, and explosives. Along with stocks of various supplies Hamas could have used to continue its war against Israel, the IDF soldiers found intelligence materials in the tunnel indicating that Muhammad Sinwar, a senior Hamas official and the brother of Hamas leader in Gaza, Yair Sinwar, was in charge of this project. The IDF spokesman said that the forces continue to investigate and neutralize the underground route that was discovered, as well as other large-scale routes that were found. The IDF will thoroughly destroy all the underground infrastructure of the Philadelphia corridor access and will act resolutely to prevent their formation in the future. About 2 months ago, the IDF announced that it had gained operational control of the Philadelphia axis and that it had located 200 tunnel shafts and 35 tunnels, some of which even crossed into Egypt. However, about 2 weeks later, a senior military official clarified in a conversation with the Washington Post that according to estimates, there remain in the area about 20 more tunnels that have not yet been discovered. The IDF knows today that the entire Gaza Strip, from north to south, from east to west, all the tunnels connect to one branching network of hundreds and perhaps thousands of tunnel sections. The IDF exerts pressure on terrorists who are inside the tunnels in a very simple way. It disables the solar collectors on the roofs of Gaza that supply the electricity to the tunnels. Then, the terrorists are forced to come out of the surface to get a fresh of breath air and try to rebuild the infrastructure. But as soon as they emerge from the tunnel entrances, they are observed by overhead reconnaissance drones and they can be targeted by air and ground forces. This happens on a daily basis and slowly, a few at a time, the Hamas fighters are being eliminated. At the same time, Division 252 continues to operate in the center of the Gaza Strip, eliminating terrorist squads and capturing large quantities of weapons and ammunition. I've said it before, but I'll repeat once more that it's incredible to think about how much money Hamas spent on weapons. This money was donated by governments and individuals around the world to improve the lives of ordinary Gazan civilians. But Hamas stole that money and spent it on death and destruction instead. Hopefully, someone else will soon be running the Gaza Strip and spending donated money on things ordinary people need, like schools, hospitals, and decent housing. Meanwhile, fighters of Division 162 continue to operate in the Rafah area. During the last day, Air Force aircraft in cooperation with the forces of the Nahal Brigade eliminated a number of terrorists and destroyed terrorist infrastructures. In the last 24 hours, Air Force aircraft attacked about 50 terrorist targets throughout the entire Gaza Strip. Among the targets that were attacked were terrorist squads, military buildings, observation posts, and terrorist infrastructures. The security forces also attacked Hamas terrorists who were operating in the terrorist organization's command and control complexes in the areas of Hassan Salma and the Netzer schools in Gaza City. Before the attacks, many steps were taken to reduce the chance of harming civilians, including the use of precision weapons and precise intelligence information. These schools were used as terrorist headquarters of the El Farak battalion, from which many terrorist plots were carried out against the IDF forces and the State of Israel, and this is according to the statement from the IDF spokesman. It was also written in the announcement on behalf of the IDF spokesman that Hamas systematically violates international law and operates from within civilian shelters while brutally exploiting civilian institutions and the population as human shields for terrorist activities. While all of this was going on, 5 rockets were fired from the Gaza Strip towards Gan Yavne and other Israeli communities in southern Israel. 4 of the rockets were intercepted and 1 fell in an open area near the Israeli community of Gan Yavne. No injuries were reported as a result of the shooting, but a large fire spread near the Palmachim IDF Air Force Base. To make a brief comment, when you hear that the rocket fell in an open area, that doesn't mean that it didn't cause problems. These rockets often start fires which take a great deal of effort to put out. So please be in prayer for the firefighting teams and the civilian volunteers who support them. Guys, we need your support to continue and produce up-to-date and accurate quality content about what is happening in Israel. So if you'd like to receive more videos like this one, please consider making a financial donation to us by clicking the link on YouTube or by going to our website at www.tbn.org/Israel. Switching our focus to events in Judea and Samaria, the IDF announced on Monday that 9 terrorists were eliminated in 2 Air Force strikes in the Tulkarem area, north of Jerusalem. This squad was actually on the way to carry out an attack on Israeli civilians when they were hit. The airstrike was followed up with a ground operation by IDF forces in the area of Tulkarem, resulting in the elimination of Hitam Belidi, a terrorist who was involved in the murder of 3 Israelis. Switching our focus once again to events further away, a source in Iraq's security forces revealed on Sunday that an exchange of fire between American forces and Iranian-backed militias in the country over the weekend had resulted in the elimination of a Houthi leader. The skirmish, which took place in Iraq's Babil province, is the latest in a series of violent encounters between American forces deployed in Iraq to fight terrorism and Iranian-sponsored militias deployed in Iraq to promote terrorism. So please continue to spread the truth, share our videos on YouTube, and follow us on social media. Take a minute and press the follow button, subscribe to this YouTube channel so that together we can give the truth its rightful place. Continuing to look at the broader Middle East, it is apparent that the United States has made a strategic decision to bolster its military presence in this part of the world. It is also apparent that the Biden administration has decided to speed up the delivery of many weapon systems and ammunitions to Israel. This includes heavy bombs that will be very useful in any campaign against Hezbollah. In recent months, there are reports that the administration had decided to slow down the shipments of certain types of ammunitions in order to try and convince Israel not to enter Rafah in the Gaza Strip. This was largely due to dire warnings issued by UN agencies and NGOs that such an operation would result in massive numbers of civilian casualties. But it is now apparent that those warnings were unfounded, as Israel succeeded in evacuating most of the civilian population in the city before moving in, and has been careful to keep casualties to a minimum during the operation itself. This has been the administration's concerns that led to the delays in weapons shipments. Some of the weapons which are now being transferred to the IDF were already in Israel, being stored by the American military in strategic pre-positioned warehouses. The United States has such warehouses in place in many allied countries all over the world, so that the weapons in them can be quickly deployed in the event of an emergency. Israel hosts these stocks with the understanding that the IDF will have access to them in any emergencies we face. The stocks in Israel have seen significant withdrawals in the past 2 years, as the United States has sent some of it to Ukraine, and the IDF has also drawn from it to fight this current war. Currently, weapons that the IDF is drawing from these stocks include air-to-air missiles, which will be needed to intercept incoming UAVs. The United States has planned to restock the warehouses in Israel as soon as possible. We will continue to report on everything that happens in Israel, but please continue to spread the truth, share and follow us, and most importantly, pray. Pray for the peace of Israel and the peace of the IDF soldiers. Pray for the peace of the abductees and their speedy return home. Pray for the resilience of the people of Israel, and most importantly, join us in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.